If it wasn't for the music business and the guitar, I would be painting houses right now.
So how long you known Ray?
25 years. When he had the Rockwalk, they invited me to do the do. It was the kind of thing where I always ask myself, how do I get to it? Through the years, then you kind of figure it out.
I think back to like his original vision of just honoring people who have kind of changed music in some way, and I think you certainly have.
It's very Ray to conceive of that and then implement it.
I wanted to hear how he envisioned the company and what made it great so I can take elements and bring it into present life. And I just like asked a ton of questions and took a ton of notes, and that's kind of informed a lot of the strategy that we're trying to put in. Ray, I'm so excited for you, and you know, I mean,
I'm very excited. I mean, I had to twist everybody's arm to come here. That used to be Guitar Center as well. And that building, and there's 2 buildings in there. Whoa. Thanks, pal. Wow, thank you. Thank you.
Ray, would you?
Usually I can say something, but I'm speechless.
Would you read for everybody here?
Yeah. It's
What you say here? This is a quote from you.
Rockwalk is a symbol of what you can do if you dream a little. I'm gratified when I see young people come and put their hands into the prints of their heroes. I think stay with it, kid. Be inspired. Go back and practice. Who knows, maybe someday we'll be helping them wipe the wet cement from their hands. All right. That's way better than I ever imagined. Thank you so much. It's like, I spent 40 years.
Yeah. You made this company really what it is today, and your legacy of Rockwalk and what you created here, there's been 150 of the most incredible musicians and creators in the world who've participated. That's your legacy. This is incredible.
Thank you. I'm speechless. But I have to thank this guy, Wayne Mitchell. Wayne was like 30 years older than me. He had the brains and he told me I had the brawn. And I hung in there and listened to every word he said. I took it to heart. Many thanks to Wayne Mitchell, most important mentor I've ever had. Thank you guys for coming.
Congratulations.
So Ray, I'd love it if you could just take us a little bit down like memory lane here. Okay. What are some of your favorite artists and handprints?
The first entrance to me was the most important. They're a little smaller than this, you know, it's been expanded. Starting out with, you know, kings of the music business, Remo Belli, Les Paul. And Les Paul just, you know, when we were walking by, he didn't see his prints, but he reminded me that he and Mary Ford lived around the corner. Having Eddie Van Halen here, wish he was still alive. I know he would have come to the event, but you know, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best. As far as favorites go, let's see. Stevie Wonder was one of the first inductions. He came here, there was a bus that waited. We were doing the induction on the inside, and his brother was here taking movie pictures. And I asked, how come you're taking movie pictures? He says, but Stevie always thought one day he might get his eyesight back again, and that he wanted to see what he had missed visually. Steve and I became good buddies over the years. We wound up doing a couple events together. We did a record company together. And when he put his handprints in, unbeknownst to me, I looked down and he put 6 fingers in one hand. And then it says, TR, thanks, Ray.
When I met Ray, I was introduced by Robert Knight. I just found just such a charming guy. And one of the things I noticed was his sense of humor, you know, always refreshing. And we became friends. But then I got to know Ray, and I realized, I understood why this company is so successful. Because in any field, it requires like an avatar that comes along and has free thinking, creative ideas, and also the economical common sense to make them work.
Yeah.
And I've heard the stories, I've grilled him over and over about how, because the mindset to create such a thing, and what I discovered was, it was his love for the instrument and for the people that played it. That was really behind so much of the push. I discovered so much more in this man. And I'm really happy, more than anything, to see at this time Ray Scherr having the appropriate optics and also the historical value being seen as to how he built this company and what he did to bring it to all of us. And where you're taking it now, it's beautiful to see. It's a good time. Yeah.
I'm going to put my hand in Steve's famous 6-finger handprint.
He'll loan you
And
one.
first of all, oh my God, look how long your fingers are. But then we have the 6 here.
I call that the Vi advantage.
That's how he plays so fast.
No doubt.
B.B. King was very special. He was a good guy, soft-spoken, and yet, even back then, he had been around forever and revered by every blues guy. When he did his induction, he came here with Lucille number 18, and he said he wanted a new Lucille. So I went and got him a new Lucille out of the thing, and we traded his Lucille for just a new Gibson.
Is that considered an affair?
No, the affair was when I called Gibson, and I said, B.B. King wants a 335. Should I give it to him? They said yes. I said, good. Send me another one. Some of the really cool ones that I remember was like Dick Clark. Dick Clark came in one of my old cars, came in a 56 Chevy, and one of the guys that I worked with pulled up in the front. And there was Dick Clark. I mean, Dick Clark was the rock and roll guy. Where's Bo Diddley? Here's an interesting story. We did Bo Diddley, and we did Willie Dixon. Most people didn't know who Willie Dixon was, but he probably wrote more blues songs than anybody. And lo and behold, the next day, Bo Diddley comes in with a cooked stuck pig, right, about this big, and he feeds the whole crew. And it was just, so show his appreciation. Carlos was a great guy. I met him the first time up in San Francisco in 75 or 6. We had gotten together after that on the 10th anniversary, and we did a fundraiser together at what was then called the Universal Amphitheater. He foot the bill for bringing all the artists in. We raised about $500,000, $600,000 at the time, which was in 1994, for music cares. That was cool. Wow. I haven't seen a lot of these. You can't meet any of these guys anymore, okay? They're on the posthumous wall. These were the kings, and Elvis being the king. But my king was this guy, Ricky Nelson. And when I was a kid, my folks came to me and they said, we want you to play a musical instrument, so we're gonna get you an accordion. And I said, I don't want to play accordion. There's 25 other kids on the block. At 3 o'clock, they're all practicing their accordion. I said, I want drums. Drums is it. We didn't have space for a drum set, and they never thought drums was a musical instrument. I said, I'm watching Ozzie and Harriet, and there's Rick Nelson playing the guitar, good-looking guy with all these girls behind him. And I said, that's what I want to play. I want to be a guitar player. I'm going to do an interview now in one of the guitar rooms. So if everybody wants to hang out and look around at the store, believe me, you won't recognize it. It's one of the most beautiful guitar stores, or any kind of store anywhere. Thanks again, guys.
Well, you know what we have over here is we actually have Lucille.
It's so surprising that B.B. King would give away one of his Lucille's. And he gave it to me, and I was with Dave Weiderman at the time, and I don't know which one grabbed it. I think he went and called Gibson. I left it here like everything else should be here.
That's such a beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
Part of history.
When you think about who played it and you hold it and you go, wow, do I really want to touch this?
Yeah.
The store looks fabulous. Looks great. Definitely looks great.
So Ray, I'd love to ask you about the early years of Guitar Center and the early years of the Hollywood store here. And, how did you even decide to put it here, but also how was it connected to the local music scene?
The Guitar Center actually started on the same block on the corner where there's a Japanese restaurant. When I joined Wayne, he had already moved across the street. We were renting 3 properties, 1 large building and two smaller buildings. And the landlord raised the rent. Iatsi used to own this building. I said, boy, wouldn't it be great if I could buy that building? Well, sure enough, they were selling the building. They were making the decisions. They had a board. And long story short, I went out and talked to them. They the board voted on it. And, I gave them the right number. And so now what am I going to do with it? It was interesting because you asked me about the early days. One of my fears was that if I go into a big building, because the building across the street, well, it was a few thousand square feet. If I move into this big building that you guys are in right now, what are the customers going to think? They think we're making too much money. We're selling our products for too much. How can they afford to take this little music store and go into this gigantic, back then, gigantic building? I knew I was going to do it because I had to move out of the other place. I said, if we can take the same vibe that we had there, we could move it into this bigger building, we'd have no problem. And that was connected, to the crew. It was connected to, obviously, LA was a mecca for musicians and, all the famous streets that they lived on and jammed together. And interestingly enough, some of them were, Jeff Baxter worked there from the Doobie Brothers, not for me, but prior to me. I don't even remember the names now, that eventually moved out. Why? Because you'd get some guy from a famous group, maybe the Eagles, and all of a sudden, I lose a keyboard player. That vibe continued from that small place to here. It was like a family of musicians. It was a music store, but it was like a family. This was a mecca for all musicians, young ones, old ones. It was all about music. There were a bunch of young kids here, 23, 24 years old. They were just down-to-earth guys. They loved music. They loved playing the guitar. They didn't mind 15 guys playing Stairway to Heaven at the same time, out of tune.
Tell me a little bit about your values and what you tried to instill.
I grew up with the golden rule. That's what I was taught. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That made it easy for me because at one time, I didn't have as many employees as you have, obviously, but I could get the message out to 1,500 people when they wanted to know what to do. So you just do what you would want done to yourself. I try to make it fun. I want to make it so it's not like a job. It's something you got to get up in the morning and it's a job. Because if I made it fun for everybody else, it'd be fun for me. But I also led by example. That's what was important to me.
So live by principles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very simple. Tell me about how the Rock Walk came about. What was the light bulb moment? How did that kind of come into a vision of what it is today?
Well, when I was moving the store across the street, we realized that it's going to take longer than we thought. I was sitting in my office and I wouldn't call it daydreaming. I was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to put where? And then it dawned on me that at the Hollywood Walk of Fame, they're mostly actors and producers. Most of them were put there because, or came to have their handprints in or whatever they had because they were having a movie come out or some event. So I was thinking, I'm saying, you know what? The guitar and music and guitar players and all, they've never been recognized. They haven't been recognized for their accomplishments. And I went to the city, and I said, I want to put this thing in similar to Grauman's Chinese Theater. And I wanted to go down Sunset Boulevard, but I want to put the handprints in. And I don't think he hung up the phone, but he wanted to. He said, well, you can't really do that. There's liability and so forth. So I said, oh, that's too bad. So I was thinking, what? We have this area. Let's create this area. It was meant to be. It was influenced me. It was Ricky Nelson influencing me. What other young people would it influence? Some people think that I solely opened it up because I'm going to get people coming here and they're going to go buy a guitar. The thought comes into your mind, but the one thing I realized from it, here's a way that somebody could put their handprints, the closest they'll ever get to Jeff Beck, closest they'll ever get, is by putting in and having a piece of Jeff Beck by putting their hands in it. It's like mystical kind of thing. My handprints are in Jeff Beck's handprints, right? That's why Steve put 5-6 fingers on it. You see people, young kids and stuff, and even adults, and they put their hand, and you could see in their eyes, it was like wow, there was something magical that was going on about it. And then it was one of those aha moments. This is really what this thing was about. It was a way to be inspired. For me, it's magical. I know it's magical for everybody else, and it's inspirational. And I always tie those two things, inspiration and perspiration.
When you selected those early pioneers, let's call them, what was the criteria you were looking for?
We wanted, when we started, to take 5 or 6, no more than that, of the most acclaimed people in the business. And we started thinking about it. So we all sat around and there was, 4 or 5 of us there. I had Norm Knight. He hadn't even opened up the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, but he was on our selection committee. And then we had Rogers and Cowan, who were the PR company. And we all sat around and said, well, what about this one? I says, you know what? The guys who made it possible for the musicians to play, right? And really were the ones that inspired these people, Les Paul. And Eddie was the youngest guy, but even back then, his, if we had to pick one guitar player, which we did, was one, and we only wanted one, was Eddie.
So the Rockwalk really was the original.
Yeah.
Before the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We're the original authentic.
We offer something that they don't, is you could put your handprints in and you could dream, one day I wish I was. That's priceless.
When you think about the future of Rockwalk, like what's your hopes and aspirations for where this goes?
I remember after we inducted the Doobie Brothers, Michael McDonald said, I had my handprint, something similar, put on Ventura Boulevard in front of a supermarket. He said, the whole thing closed down and so forth. I hope this is here in 20 years from now and it's not a supermarket. When I sold the company, Rockwalk was in my heart. And I didn't know if Rockwalk was going to continue. After knowing you a very short time, I think it'll continue with your leadership.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're a guitar player.
I am a guitar player.
And
you
just showed me how to play classic.
There's a lot of really amazing things about this company. I think one of the most remarkable ones is Rockwalk. And my aspiration is, we take this to the future and continue to honor the people who are changing music and having lasting influences on music. It's an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you.
And
you too. Vice versa here, pal.
Thank you. So much of what we are today is because of you. I wanted to, number one, show my respect, but number two,
thank you.
I wanted to learn how you thought about the business and really kind of what made us great in our formative years, and think about what we can bring, how we can bring that into the present, and really make sure this company is grounded and has a really strong set of values and a really clear direction. And I think Rockwalk plays a great part of that. It's not a business driver, but it is like a cultural driver.
Yeah.
And it is important to musicians and to music.
I'm so glad that it's finally got up to speed with your leadership and that it will continue.
Tell me what today means to you and your family.
One of the reasons it was important for me to be acknowledged about the Rockwalk and starting it and my visions about it. After I sold the company, I was kind of out of the loop as far as Guitar Center and as far as the Rockwalk. My son was here months ago. He brought his oldest daughter. My grandkids didn't know anything about that. Everybody has a legacy, good or bad. So you know what? There's nothing around here that says Ray Scherr on it. And I thought, well, when I depart, it would be nice. So when I'm history, not above the grass, she can bring her kids or whatever, say, your great-grandfather, that was him. And I'm not Henry Ford, but what the hell? In a small way, I'm able to have my family talk about the legacy. And this guy made it happen. I appreciate the acknowledgement. For me, but for all my kids.
Well, Ray, I just want to thank you so much for being here today and tell you what an inspiration you are to me and to the company, and what an honor it is personally to be working at this incredible institution that you started. I hope I can carry your legacy forward.
I know you will. You really put it together for me. This was one of the missing links I had.
And I think that's a wrap.
How much do I get paid for this?
Appearance fee.
I mean, this was a car dealership at the time. It was a drugstore. This was a burlesque hall that was owned and operated by Groucho Marx.
Wow.
And Groucho Marx was one of my favorite comedian and personalities ever. So it, has a history way prior to being Guitar Center.